Hello. Sometime back during our critique group that we have here, it was suggested that I remove this portion of this tree. So I wanted to show you how I did that. I spend a lot of time looking at my trees, spending time with them as I water them, spending time thinking about what they're going to look like in the future. And like I said, at our critique, we were looking at this tree. It's a California Juniper that is a Yamadori. And I've gotten it fairly healthy. It still has wire on it. And it has two main sections. It has the apex section and the other cascade type area. And I've always thought that they're competing with each other, and I could get it so that they could coordinate together if I ended up ginning the bottom portion of this. So that's essentially what I'm going to do here. It still has wire on it, so I'm going to use wire cutters to cut back the end of the branches. I want to cut back to where the foliage begins so that I can have a clear understanding of the branch work that the tree has developed, so I could coordinate that branch work into the various gins that I'm going to create here. And so it also provides me time to step back and take a look at the tree again too once I remove that foliage. So like I said, I used wire cutters because I did have wire. I use copper wire for California junipers. They don't grow real quick. You know, they don't swell up like other trees do. And so you can leave that copper wire on there for a while. And this is a technique of removing that wire without damaging the branch. So now we're at the point where I want to start scraping off the bark. In some times of the year it swells up in some trees, and you can actually remove that bark with a knife. But in this case I'm going to be scratching it off using a scraper, or I'm going to a draw knife, or I'm going to use a spoon scraper. But before I do that, I want to get an idea of what I want as far as length of this gin. I also want it to look natural, like an animal came and chewed off the end of it, of the branch, and just left it, and to give it a more natural feel. But yet, the ends of the branching are very good to think about in regards to the overall balance of your tree when you're done. And you can see I'm pulling off that bark in a way that an animal would chew back the bark on a tree. So I could do some more refined scraping using the spoon scraper, I call it. And this is really just initial cleaning up. So while you're doing this, you really want to think about what kind of shapes you want, the direction of the gin. Obviously the tree will tell you that, but you can see the grain and you want to accent that grain. So I want to get this motion of this Jin here to move back into the main area of interest within the end of the Jin. In here I'm using a root cutter. Once I get this general thing, general shape done, I bring in my power tools. Of course, you want your safety gear, protect your eyes, and I have a die grinder, and that's for most of the major grinding I'm going to do, and a Dremel that's going to help me with the sanding. I'm using a disc grinder for the initial laying out of the veins of the dead wood. You really want to study the tree and where those veins are and accent those as best you can. And the wheel helps me get within those veins and really bring those veins out. I also like to divot. And when I'm divoting, I put the divots close to each other, but in a way that they can accent a much greater sense of flow when it comes to accenting your veins. So it gives you greater interest. I'm not crazy about really smooth Jins. I like it to be very irregular surfaces. I'll also work on some of the old Jin at the same time that's within this area. And a lot of it's clean up, moving some of the surface finish and getting it so that the two Jins look natural together. I'll also hollow out areas that are the end of the Jin because I kind of like a flatness to it. So now I'll use my surface grinder, and the surface grinder helps me get rid of the tool marks as well as connect those divots that I created in a very smooth and organic way. And it's a way of giving this a very natural look to the Jin, but also providing time for that Jin to begin to crack over time. So now it's to prepare the surface for surface treatment. So I'll use water. What you want to do is you want to soak the gin prior to using the lime sulfur. That soaking will start to absorb within the gin, and in turn will be able to absorb the lime sulfur. Now I do a little bit something different here. I like to add a little gouache, and I'm using titanium white, very little, to my lime sulfur. That gives me a very smooth white surface. If you just use the lime sulfur, it'll also give you a white surface, but there seems to be some irregularities with just using the straight lime sulfur, and so I found that using the gouache really helps. But I don't necessarily care for a very white gin or shari. I like, because the green of the foliage is the opposite of that, would be red. So I'm going to add very, very little. It's very slight little bit of titanium red gouache to my lime sulfur and mix that up thoroughly so that it gives the kind of a warm hue to the gin. And that works really well with the green of the foliage. I try to be as clean as I possibly can and not get any of that on my hands. If I do, I wash my hands right away. So I thoroughly mix the gouache with the lime sulfur, but I'm using very, very little gouache. So the lime sulfur is already red, orange, so you're going to get an orange look to your solution there. And so when you're applying the lime sulfur, you want to protect, or at least I do, I protect the soil. You can actually use lime sulfur as a insecticide, very diluted insecticide. But in this case, I just want to be cautious and protect the pot as well as the soil. So I'll start at the base and I'll brush towards the tip. And you'll notice that it will create this orangish red hue onto the gin. But don't worry about that, because as the lime sulfur dries, it oxides and it creates that white hue that I was telling you about. And in the same time, it preserves the wood. So there's the finished product. You can see the slight warmness to the gin from the gouache solution, and you can also see the divots and the veins that were created by using the die grinder and smoothing it out. Over time it'll dry, and when it dries it'll start creating these micro cracks. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. Also, you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram, where I post a lot of my artwork, and artwork itself can be found at Reeker's Art.